We're at the dawn of a new civilization, but that's not easy to find on social media. For decades, frauds like America is just an idea, or worse, we're just a place to get rich and climb the ladder, where you ignore your neighbor while milking the handouts. The academics told us that a nation is just a construct, that life is really about seeking pleasure, competing for power, and striving for control. Mamdani's Muslim communists and Chief Justice John Roberts share this creed in common. In their addled brains, there's no principle, no natural law, and no civilization to defend, let alone build. It makes them postmodern serfs, willfully subhuman, like animals, fixating on what's good for me, my team, and my class. If left unopposed, this is the road to barbarism and dissolution. But the descent of Clarence Thomas on birthright citizenship shows a different road, the road less traveled, a road built on principle, not preference, something not seen from our lawyers and academics for far too long. It looks like America's 250th birthday is actually the beginning of a new American Renaissance, not because we're already there. Such transformations aren't initiated as great triumphs. Great moments like this are often initiated by the exposure of severe crimes or deeply held lies. But only when a people find within themselves the courage to fight and even die for the truth of true principle does mankind advance. This is the very reason America was founded and how we can once again advance the cause of freedom. In this video, we're going to celebrate the true America and her resurrection, because real citizenship is about a lot more than entitlements. At core, the United States lives based on the human soul, the revolutionary idea made universal by the Christian faith. But this soul is not an abstract concept. It's not a fringe legal theory or liberal mantra. It's the very foundation of civilization, our system of law, and our economic success. And any nation, society, or civilization that disregards the soul will perish, and so it should. Clearly, Clarence Thomas knows it. The Pilgrims risked everything based on this, and so did our founders. It's why our nation is the very pinnacle of Western civilization. I'm Mike Steger. I've been fighting for this kind of revival of our country for over 25 years. So take a few minutes on this week of American independence and consider the tensions those men and women must have felt in 1776, when the risk was very real and the victory was far from certain, and help revive the true America today. And if you're ready to fight for our nation, then hit like and subscribe and sign up for the free newsletter in the description. We need all the help we can get. Harvard and Yale lost their soul soon after they were founded, if they'd ever had one. The real beachhead of the American system begins not with lawyers, academics, or merchants, but with working-class families, farmers from the Midlands of England, social outcasts. What today we call the Pilgrims were a people who had accepted the role of greatness given to them by God alone. Their mission was unlikely to ever succeed on its own. But even their second ship was sabotaged, delaying the entire trip. By the time they landed at Plymouth in Massachusetts, it was in cold November instead of sunny August, and they had only a single ship of supplies instead of two. The winter was brutal, so brutal that half of the 102 pilgrims died that first winter. The survivors had to care for the dying while keeping themselves alive. And the 50 or so people that remained, not soldiers or frontiersmen, but outcasts, families, farmers, became the very cornerstone of our nation. Here's their governor, William Bradford, on that first winter, as their own wives, husbands, and children were dying, 1 or 2 a day. He said, quote, "There were but 6 or 7 sound persons, who spared no pains, night or day, but with abundance of toil and hazard of their own health, fetched them wood, made them fires, dressed them meat, made their beds, washed their loathsome clothes, and all this willingly and cheerfully, without any grudging in the least, showing therein their true love unto their friends and brethren." Without knowing the toughness of the Pilgrims' quality of devotion, you can't understand what makes someone truly American. Instead of saving themselves, they focus on the care of the dying amidst unimaginable suffering, at the hazard of their own health. There was no handout, no reward, no ladder to climb. They were burying their own families in the snow, and yet they persevered to build what they called a new Jerusalem. They weren't crossing an ocean to get rich. They were out to build a new civilization free from the corruption of Europe. These first Americans sought to build a culture that made the soul a conscious part of society, and from the life of the soul, they would bring the principles of God's natural law to earth, to daily life, for the benefit of all men. The soul, the immortal soul made in God's image, was the very foundation of America. 10 years later, the first reinforcements came. Think about this. The Pilgrims, after losing half of their families, husbands, wives, and children, within months of their arrival, they then persevered for 10 years to build a beachhead of civilization in the wilderness thousands of miles from home. And the leader of the Puritans, John Winthrop, when they arrived in 1630, understood what the Pilgrims had begun. Standing on the deck of the Arabella ship, before they even landed, he called on the Puritans to adopt this sacred American mission. Quote, "If one member suffers, all suffer with it. If one be in honor, all rejoice with it." And he said, what holds that body together? Quote, "The ligaments of this body which knit together are love." He means the kind of love that will sacrifice, suffer, and even die. Because as he said, the whole venture was, quote, "to improve our lives to do more service to the Lord, the comfort and increase of the body of Christ, whereof we are members, that ourselves and posterity may be the better preserved." For ourselves and posterity, the preamble to our Constitution. They were building a new civilization for future generations. This is what citizenship means to a self-governing people. Not entitlements, not the right to rage in the streets like animals and threaten violence and chaos, but to build something that future generations can cherish, regardless of the obstacles in front of them. Nothing can be as severe as what the Pilgrims faced. Truly nothing. And Winthrop knew the stakes. The Pilgrims and Puritans were raised in Shakespeare's England, the England of the King James Bible. They knew the bloody consequence of striving for power or personal satisfaction above all else. They knew the warnings of Isaiah and Jeremiah, the consequences of perfidy and cowardice from the tragedies of Macbeth and Hamlet. This is how Winthrop ends his first American sermon. Quote, "If we shall deal falsely with our God in this work we have undertaken, we shall be made a story and a byword through the world, till we be consumed out of the good land whither we are going." Consumed out of the land as a warning to the world. Winthrop stood above the earthly throne of our nation yet to be, and judged it by a law far above the judgments of men. And this is not a religious idea. The prophets of old didn't call for more ritual burnt sacrifices. They called for a contrite heart. They appealed to the souls of their people to repent and find unity in their shared mission. 2 weeks ago, 9 justices in Washington were handed the most basic question a republic can be asked. What is a citizen? Is it someone who has carried equal responsibility, who owes his life to the society and builds for the posterity? Or are they a subject, a serf, something from feudal law that is subhuman, to be counted, managed, and harvested under a limited set of rights? Chief Justice Roberts wrote the majority, one which he will long regret. Here's his definition of an American citizen. Citizenship, he said, is the, quote, "right to have rights, to freely participate in our political community." The right to have rights. How empty is that? Citizenship, for Roberts, is a bundle of entitlements handed to you at birth, something you're given, something you're owed. No soul, no responsibility, nothing to earn, no mission, no posterity, just a claim check to which you're entitled because you happen to be born here. And where did Roberts get this legal theory from? He reached back before the Constitution, before the Declaration, and even before the landing of the Pilgrims in 1620. He got his definition of citizenship out of English feudal law, the law of the subject, the property of the feudal lord. Roberts calls this feudal servitude the foundations of American citizenship, the nation which broke from that very English king, the nation that fought and died to make these slaves free. This is not the first time the Supreme Court has made such a dreadful decision. This is the same legal view of Dred Scott, which declared that a runaway slave wasn't a citizen because he was black. Seems like an opposite reading, but in essence it's the same. It's law by convenience, not by principle. Despite these 6 justices' abject failure, the veil of deception is finally falling. The light is cracking through the clouds. Justice Clarence Thomas led the dissent. And this wasn't just a ruling. This was a reassertion of the very foundations of our republic. Not the court's obsession with corporate rights, not academic legal theory based on pre-Christian norms, but the principled foundations of our republic and the pinnacle of Western civilization. We haven't seen this kind of assertion of principle from the court since the post-Civil War era. We're reviving the very cultural foundations of our republic. And that's why this legal argument is something all of us need to understand. Thomas said it plainly. The majority's rule, he said, was, quote, based on medieval English feudal principle, according to which each person owed personal service to the lord of the soil as his master, a perpetual servitude that was born with the child and only ended in the grave. Thomas says this, quote, English feudal principle was not accepted by the American governments. He said, John Adams famously wrote that the feudal theory meant that the common people were held together in herds and clans in a state of servile dependence on their lords, in a state of total ignorance of everything divine and human. Americans emphatically rejected this theory. And reject it we did. We fought a revolution because our ultimate responsibility is to the divine, not to a king or any earthly body. We fought a civil war on the universality of this principle. And it's this American culture, the America of the Revolution and of our Union, that we're reviving today, against all the obstacles, against all the brainwashing, and all the miseducation. Thomas continued in his dissent. He said, quote, blacks were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans. They had no other homeland, owed no allegiance to any foreign power, and were subject to no other authority. Then, quoting Frederick Douglass regarding the distinction that black Americans had earned, Thomas said this, they fought and bled in the same battles, gained and gloried in the same victories, and were liable to be called upon to defend America in time of war, alongside every other citizen. The citizenship clause thus guaranteed them the dignity and glory of American citizenship, so as to ensure that they would never be treated as second class under the law. The dignity and the glory, not the right to have rights, not some entitlement or golden ticket, but something that had been earned by great sacrifice. Glory and dignity are not given. Like freedom, they are bestowed by natural law only through sacrifice. And only a nation that acknowledges this higher law, as our Declaration says, the laws of nature and of nature's God, can understand citizenship within a self-governing republic. In 1852, the most famous black American in the world, Frederick Douglass, gave a speech on the 4th of July. 8 years before the Civil War, this speech carried all the tension you might imagine. The arguments against slavery and citizenship were raging throughout our country. Yet Douglass recognized the true question of citizenship, the same that Lincoln saw. Douglass said it this way, quote, you have no right to enjoy a child's share in the labor of your fathers unless your children are to be blessed by your labors. And this is the very essence of citizenship. It's not merely what our fathers have done, but what we will do today for our children's children. We are all blessed to have the benefits of generations before us. This is our inheritance of independence. But we can't only celebrate. As Lincoln said, we must also rededicate. Our hearts must receive not only the blessings of liberty, but the devotion and sacrifice from which true liberty springs. An undying commitment to truth when the results are far from certain. This was Socrates. It remains the spirit of Christ, the spirit that filled the pilgrims and our founders, the spirit that built the greatest economy in the world from the wilderness of Plymouth shores. This is the American way. Because the pursuit of happiness is not a life of pleasure. The pilgrims, which suffered unimaginable loss, triumphed through the faith in the wilderness of uncertainty. That's the pursuit of happiness. Douglass pursued not pleasure, but truth, and in doing so gained true freedom. As the Gospel of John says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's the fight, to revive the ancient chords of harmony with nature's God. Happy Independence, America. May you have 250 more. Thanks for watching.
Hi, Neil here, the Twisted Light Worker. Mike did a great inspirational talk. Tied a lot of detailed information together that made it really inspiring to see that this whole earth realm is about to shift, and we're about to shift into the American political and the American system of economics. It's an amazing time to be on this earth realm. And there's so much going on and so much has already taken place. It's exciting to see, and everyone should be jumping up and down and looking for more proof of white hat actions, because we're at the cusp of explosions of good things happening. And I can't wait to watch the faces of the doubters and the negative people when they watch the whole world transform over the next decade. The next decade is just going to be absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You see, a warrior seeks personal power not to influence the affairs of people or the world. A warrior seeks personal power only to get where one is going, and that is to freedom. And to achieve freedom, it is necessary to give it to the affairs of people and the world. That's Mark 𝓘𝓷𝓽𝓻, tall tech teacher that I follow on Facebook and been following him for years, and got over 2,000 of his quotes saved that he shares on a daily basis. He's always got some of his old stuff and some of his new stuff that he shares. I saved about 2,000 of them just for my own personal reflection. That's what they are. They're good things to reflect upon. So when you think about Trump and what he's doing, he's absolutely demonstrating what it is to be a warrior and working towards freedom. And he's working towards freedom for the whole earth realm, And the Q plan is unfolding step by step. And those of us who have followed long enough to really learn how to see the comms and to see what's going on, it's so obvious that things are happening. It's so obvious that things are happening. You see, warriors are not born. They are not made. Warriors create themselves through trial and error, pain and suffering, and their ability to conquer their own faults. Very few people want to look in the mirror, but that's where it all starts. Some people were fortunate and been raised in a family where they had some of this discipline and the confidence instilled in them to the point where they could take it to another level. Other people, like me, had to learn how to stand in my own power through trial and error, pain and suffering for a long time. It took me a long time to learn what it was like to actually be responsible for my own attitude and be responsible for my own situation. I shouldn't say that. I've always been responsible for that. I never blamed anybody else, but I never tapped into the power that I have on the inside until later in life. And that's when I came to the realization that when we shift our energy from fear to power with compassion, we will find we were always loved beyond human understanding. It takes willpower to get the ego out of the way and silenced. It's not a passive act. Action with the power of intent will stop the ego's chatter and lead you to freedom. So, welcome to the discipline of awakening. This great awakening is all about you and I becoming more aware of that God-given divinity that's inside each and every one of us. God hath not given the spirit of fear, but of love and of power and sound mind. Too many people get hung up on just believing that love is going to conquer it all. What was the power and sound mind supposed to be doing? Well, those are the things that are going to help you have that discipline to make that warrior spirit in you become more. You have to be willing to become more. And as we become more, 2030 will be our agenda. And I've been saying this since 2017. Thrivalism, I coined that term in 2017. We will thrive and be happy. I hadn't even heard of 𝓘𝓷𝓽𝓻𝓸𝓭𝓾. And what is 𝓘𝓷𝓽𝓻𝓸𝓭𝓾? Well, look at it. It's individual nation states being responsible for themselves. I was on track for a long time. Thank God that I've had some ancient metaphysical training and some spiritual training in my life that brought me to this point where I'm so confident in what's going on, and I'm excited, and you should be too. And and all the doubting Thomases, they all need to be kicked right out of the chat rooms completely. Bad apples spoil the whole bag of them, a whole bushel of them. One bad apple and you'll ruin the whole bushel. You gotta get rid of them. And they'll find their way back when they're ready. Because you can't wake up sleeping that don't want to be woke. They don't want to be awakened. You can't wake them up. But you can show them what's going on and walk away. And that's my philosophy. I never stop believing that we should be doing what we can to wake up people, because there's an awful lot of people who are curious. But the whole point is, don't hang around. Don't believe it's your responsibility to wake them up. Just drop a little gem here and there. Give them a little boot in the butt and walk away. Shake a tree. Shaking trees and hugging trees is delightfully rooted in the same compassion. And some people need a hug, other people need a boot in the butt. And that's why I say take the trolls and the negative thinkers and boot them out of the chat room so that the rest of us can amplify our research on what's positive, proof of the white hat actions and how the whole world is unfolding. And the whole world is going to be developing the American system of economics and the American system of politics, because that is God-given. It's coming from the heart and soul of each individual, just like Mike said. And as always, I wish you and yours peace profound.